I'd like to start off by telling you that I really have no claim to fame. I don't have any particular reason for being here other than the fact that I am a self-taught geek. You're in academia, you're learning to become a professional, not of my own choices, but life so dictated it that I did not have the opportunity to be where you are at your age, right? I had to go about the process of being involved with computers and working with computers a different path, right? And I've been working with computers. In fact, the Y2K process, the huge need for government and industry to pull people in to help them with the Y2K issue. The sky was falling down and everything was going to end. That process allowed people like me who did not have academic credentials to get into the field. And so, be it 2015, this is how many years I've been in the industry and working and making a living at it, but I still feel like there are peaks and there are huge valleys. There are areas that I've worked at and I have information, and then I feel like there are valleys that are missing. So my involvement with you guys is my attempt to fill these valleys, and people like Brian, other people have heard me say this many a times, that a lot of stuff I say to you because I want to hear myself say it. I need to hear those things as well. These are the things that you are on a particular path, and I've taken a particular other path, and I'm trying to reconcile the two. And in this process, if there is a bit that I can throw at you, it's my pleasure to do so. Other than all of that, the only other thing I have is a coffee mug that says "Future Millionaire," and I think you all beat me to it. One of the ideas, I know a lot of you are probably in that crucial stage of deciding on your career. One of your questions very well may be, why computer science? As you go through your classes, as you take your tests, as you get evaluated, sometimes you might say, wouldn't it be easier if I just changed my major and did an IT thing? Wouldn't it be easier? We have a lady in our class, and you are very close to my heart. We'll get to that in a different part, but you don't know how excited I am when I see women in environments like this. Brian knows. I've told Brian 50 different times. But anyway, let me get back to track. My heart just skipped a beat. So why computer science is a valuable thing, or why is it worth your effort? The reason it's worth your effort is because we have evolved to a point where our brain will not allow us to evolve anymore without help of computers, right? Our brain is still designed for seeing patterns of a leopard in the bush, right? For equations of things that move really fast, for equations of things that are very small, for biology, for patterns in socioeconomic situations. For all of these things, we cannot rely on our own experience anymore. We need to, what Professor Anwar said this morning, we need to have situations where we can simulate the situations in our real life and experience it in a digital way so that we can make better decisions. We cannot afford to go through the Industrial Revolution and experience it the same way we did across the world, everybody, right? We can't afford to do that. We cannot afford to constantly, all over the God's creation, beat the hell out of each other in wars and decide that history needs to continue on repeating itself, right? We can't afford to do this. That's why we need this artificial intelligence to augment ours. And despite the fact that there are plenty of people your age sitting in Ivy League schools that are going to do this. If you didn't do it, they'll do it. But the diversity that you create, when you are part of this field, is what's going to be the winning ticket. That is super, super fantastic. Those guys will do it. There'll be somebody doing this thing. But this field will be richer if you are part of it. Now, why should you do this and not the other stuff? Well, I'm not standing here kind of like blowing smoke and artificially inflating your personality. I don't believe in that stuff. My parents never did it to me. I was always able to read it really well when somebody did it to me. I always knew the guy had something to sell to me. But if at this stage of your life you're going to make this decision, it's probably better to aim for political science. I got election on my mind. It's probably better to aim for computer science. And then if you have to, for whatever reason, settle for IT. Right? If you couldn't hack IT, then you could settle for project management, right? But I hate to see that just because of the fact that you thought that the idea is too big for me to conceive at this stage of my life, I should give it up. No. Your goal for the future, your career goal, Brian and I have talked about this in the past, should always be a shoe that you're going to grow into, not a shoe that's perfectly comfortable for you right now. The shoe that you're perfectly comfortable with right now, tomorrow will be too small for you, you're going to throw away. But what are you going to do? Tomorrow that you're ready to throw this shoe away, you're no longer are the young, energetic person with the absorbent brain and the flexibility to come to the class, take as many credits as you're taking right now, and do all the other things. You're probably going to be married, you're probably going to have a child on the way. Will you be able to change course, relearn, do other things? Maybe not. This is the time for you to aim high, to reach for the moon, to go shoot for as far as you possibly could do. If you needed to come down from there, albeit. Plus the fact that when if you're a computer scientist, you can tell God what you said, right? Inside of any organization, inside of any branches of the military, inside the federal government, forget about being a computer scientist. I only know 2 computer scientists that are not part of academia. One of them is less than 30, one of them is over 70. Nobody tells these people what their retirement age is. Nobody tells them when to come to work, when to go, when to work from home, when to not work from home, what to wear, which meeting. People come to them and say, on such date, there's such meeting. We think it would help us if you were there for a few minutes. Is it possible? Would you please come? Right? I work for the federal government, I work for the Congress. They choose to work for the Congress because they believe in the way the bill becomes a law. Their being there, their influence in this process, they believe helps the whole country. They don't have to be there. They can be anywhere and making 10 times more money that they're making right now, right? These people have total financial. This is different. You get to a point where you learn what financial control over your life means as opposed to having money, right? Michael Jordan is rich. The guy that gives Michael Jordan his paycheck is wealthy, right? If you play your cards right and apply yourself and really learn this stuff, you get to a point where you never have, it'll be beneath you to think about money. You will never have to think about money. I think that's a very motivating, very good motivating factor to hunker down and study, do the hard work that's necessary from you, because this is the kind of tool that you add to your tool belt and you'll be set forever. You will decide who you're going to work for. Well, that's a wrong sentence to say. You're going to decide who you're going to apply your knowledge to help get to their goals and destinations. Right? You'll never work for anybody. You'll always work for yourself. And I'll come back to that sentence in 2 seconds. Now you're going to say, okay, well, Casey, I'm motivated. If nothing else, I like to make sure that I'm going to make a lot of money. Tell me how the hell I'm going to do this. Well, first thing first, the fact that you're in an academic environment, I'd like for you to take 2 seconds and make a distinction between being a learned person and being somebody who's going to get a degree. The fact that you're here, I know for a fact that each and every one of you is going to end up with a degree. That's not a question. A large majority of you are going to end up with like some sort of an honor, right? I doubt that any one of you has ever gotten anything less than a B, right? But keep in mind that as human beings, we have learned to do things by following a certain pattern. We don't have the time to calculate the probability rate of being hit by a bus every time we want to cross the street, right? We follow some sort of a pattern. We don't cross the street at the most maximum beneficial time, right? When we cross the street, we could have waited more, we could have waited less to cross the street, but we followed some sort of a pattern and we did it. During the fact that we take 12 years of education before we get to college, and then this many more years of schooling before we graduate, is because of the fact that we need to learn that there are certain times in our life and our work where following the pattern is not good enough anymore. We need to be precise, right? So take the time to apply that kind of logic to the big task of you being educated. Do not just follow a pattern. You notice how now that you're in college, you can drop a class. You notice how you can leave in the middle of a lecture. You know that how much more flexibility you have compared to when you were in high school. Well, with this comes a responsibility. This means that now it's time for you to learn how to learn. At this point in your life, you need to be conscious of the fact that I need to stop being a vessel into which others pour information, and I need to become this creature that sucks in information with a purpose, right? You're going to suck in information and take these separate pieces of information, put them together, and create a synergy that is new information. Because that new information that Casey puts together in his head is going to be different than the new information that Brian puts into his head. It's like two different chefs putting exactly two ingredients together and coming up with a different dish. That means when you went to that psychology class, you didn't just tick off a requirement. You finished that psychology class, and now you learned how to work better with somebody. Now you learned why was it that I had that difficulty with my sibling, and how can I prevent that from happening. You went to that calculus class, and you learned something that all of a sudden made that physics class so much easier for you to understand. You take these pieces of information and put them together, and that makes you a better person. That makes you a learned person as opposed to somebody that just has a degree. Plenty of people have degrees. You will be different because of the fact that you're going to go one step above it. And this part of it, nobody's going to give you. This is something that is entirely up to you. This is where you're going to say, I'm not going to be like everybody else. I'm going to be different. It's something that happens to you during your life. If I can be an example to you and have it happen to you earlier than later, the better. Now, you go through a period, you learn something, and you start working. And that's where we get to where you start making money. For this reason, or for this section, I'd like for you to think of a first-year college student. Think of, say, George Mason. A first-year George Mason student, like yourself, like a computer science first year, and a first-year athlete at George Mason, say a basketball player at George Mason. Think about the 4 years at George Mason, and think about how these two different students' lives would be different. You're going to go to classes, you're going to learn things, you're going to owe money on your schooling, right? That athlete is going to go, there's going to be a huge organization behind that athlete. That athlete is going to get all kinds of support. The coach of that athlete, I want to pull my hair every time I think about this. The coach of that athlete is going to get paid, probably even the assistant coach of that athlete is going to get paid more than the physics professor, the chemistry professor, the computer science professor, right? That kid is going to have all kinds of people around him, guiding him, helping him. He's going to be on TV. He's going to get all kinds of attention. And when he leaves George Mason, he's immediately going to go into pro, and he's going to immediately make a ton of money, and all of his schooling is going to be paid for. Now, there's no reason for us to start thinking about communism and, be down with capitalism. Absolutely not. There's a system. The common man pays for the fact that they can sit on their couch and watch college basketball on TV. That money supports that system. The common man doesn't have the knowledge of finding it useful and enjoyable to sit and watch college kids compete on who can quickly solve a calculus problem. It does not compute for the common Joe six-pack. That's all it is, right? But we don't. Now that we see the system, we don't need to fall victim to it. You don't have to fall victim to it. You don't have to live exactly the same way as they do. Especially you. Now, it would have been difficult if you wanted to be a creative writer, if you wanted to be a sculptor, plenty of other things might have been difficult. The fabulous thing is that in the field of computer science that you and I are interested in, it's all very cheap. It's all bits and bytes. It's all super very cheap. It's all doable. You can do everything that basketball player does with their lives. You can build a crowd around you. You can let the world see the work that you do, but you have to first create the work. The same way that if you go talk to that basketball player is going to tell you that it's annoying as hell to get up and go to drills too. You have to make that annoyance come to life for yourself. You got to get up, you got to code, you got to build, and you got to put what you've built and coded out in the world for people to see. And then all problems will be solved. Your brand will be known. And you don't need to be, super fantastic right off the bat. This presentation is a Google slide. It's available open. You don't need to write any notes or anything. Brian, I'm sure, is going to email it to the whole crowd. If you are at a point where you say, Casey, I'm interested in computer science. Computer science has 10 different branches and blah, blah, blah. I don't know exactly what part of it I'm interested in. I like to play with different things to find out exactly what part I have more talent in or whatever. These are some sources where you can go the same way that you can come here and take very different classes and audit the class maybe, or drop a class or whatever. And if this is time consuming for you, you want to do it online, you can go to Udacity, take classes for free. You can go to Coursera, take classes for free. You can go to Khan Academy, take classes for free. President Obama has promised that he's going to teach a class on Khan Academy about constitutional law after his presidency is over. You can go to MIT OpenCourseWare and watch video lectures of professors at MIT and do the homeworks on your own and send them to MIT. Professors won't correct your courses, but other students will provide feedback for you. If you're the kind of person that likes to get their hands dirty and do the actual, like the Professor Anwari showed us in the class, actually getting to the hardware and see where the actual gate for an if statement may be, the hardware version of it is, right? Arduino will very cheaply, you can get the boards and the language that comes with it. My goal is to build a project where the sucker would notice the sunlight coming in through the window and send me a tweet that says good morning. And at the end of 365 days of a year, I can have a nice graph relevant to length of the day. In front of you, I promised myself to do that before Christmas. It's important for you to get past the user interface. The user interface is like using the user interface is like for a mechanic to say, I don't want to get my hands oily. And it's very easy to use the command line. Altogether, if you think about it, what do you use the user interface for anyway? You click on windows that close or open, and then in it you sometimes write things, and those things are variables that change, right? Altogether, maybe there are 25 commands that you need to learn. Altogether, I gave you a YouTube video of a cool cat that teaches you these things. There are plenty of other stuff that can give you like primer, but obviously taking something like a Professor Anwari's course is never, none of these are substitutes for that, of course. Now, here are some places where you could publish your work as you work on building your portfolio. All of these sources are free for you to use. Please don't hesitate to get started on this right away. The older your portfolio on any of these sources, the better, right? And nobody wants to see you. Nobody wants to see the fact that your account is only 3 months old on Stack Overflow, for example, right? It's much better to see that your account's been on, say, GitHub for 2 years, and during the 2 years you've had 15 commits as far as the code that you've uploaded. And this is how you will circle the whole idea of resumes and resume writing and getting your resume in front of people and getting your foot in the door, because people will, Google your name and they'll find out that on GitHub you have code that you've committed, and they download that code and they implement that code, and they see how you wrote your code, they see your style, they see what you've implemented, and this is how you get to show off. I gave you a link here to this young man's website. His name is Matt. I believe he's 19 or 20 years old. If you could model yourself after him, you've done yourself a very good favor, right? He's already working for some company. You notice that he has his own website, so he's demoing the stuff that he's made. He's got a GitHub account, so you can look at his code on GitHub. He has a codepen account, so you can look at his code there on codepen. And essentially, by being online, by letting people see what he's done, he has eliminated the need to go out and look for a job, right? There are people that are looking for his expertise. They'll find him and they go to him. And that's what you want to do. That should be your aim. That's how you build a career, as opposed to have a situation where you finish your education, get a degree, then you have to work as an entry-level position and hope to be promoted or whatever. That kind of system benefits the employer, not you. You want to be a person that creates a crowd around you, and based on that, you can demand the big bucks for yourself. Obviously, taking something like a professional analytics course is none of these are substitutes for that, of course. Now, in conclusion, what should you not do? Please do not hack. This is counterintuitive to normal logic, right? And it's only counterintuitive to normal logic because data is valuable to companies and security is important to federal government, right? I used this example with Brian when we were talking. If you're walking down the street, and imagine there are houses lined up down the street, and each house has a gate in front of it. As you walk in front of each house, you rattle the gate to see if it's locked or not. If it's locked, you walk by. If it's not locked, maybe you holler, "Mr. Smith, your door is not locked." Or maybe you sit on the front stoop till Mr. Smith comes home, right? Or you leave him a note saying your door was not locked. None of these things, police officer will never come and arrest you for these things. This is what happens in real life, and you're perfectly legal to do this. Unfortunately, and probably when I was your age, this was legal to do with digital information too. But nowadays, it's no longer the case. For the very fact that you rattle this cage to see if it will open or not, you are considered to have done something illegal. The only way you could do this legally is to go and make the duplicate of this door for yourself on your own property, and then rattle it as much as you want to see if you can break it or not, right? So please do not hack. Your intuition to say, can I get into this? Can I get into this? Can I get into this? Comes from the portion of your personality from pre-high school, when you went to school and you had a lot of fun and you learned. And that's a fantastic part of you. Don't kill that, but do it in a legal way. Don't be a troll. A troll is a person that goes around, tries to find a way in, right? That is a creative, inquisitive part of the process, but it's illegal. And just for doing it, you could cut yourself out of a large portion of your future potential. And the next thing is drugs. I know I stand before you looking very square. The very fact that I use the word square means I'm square, right? But I assure you I'm anything but. I have a nerve disease that is, for lack of a better word, is similar to multiple sclerosis. My body is donated to science. While I'm alive, I'll take any kind of experimental medicine that they come up with. I'll go for any surgery that they come up with. When I kick the bucket, they harvest any organs that they can, and then the rest of my cadaver goes to students in medical school so that they can carve me up and learn anatomy or whatever. I hope that they find a brain. They might find a walnut. Right? But, so I am not, and none of you look like Chi Chi Chung, or I know you're not dope heads, right? But I know of smart kids that want that edge for creativity. And I assure you that you do not need it. If we were in a creative writing class, right, I wouldn't argue with you. And there are some situations where somebody might, and I know people with like bipolar disorder and whatever, that they say it is worth it. If you could put out the volume of work of Edgar Allan Poe by the age of 25, using drugs, and then you knew that at your 25th birthday you would die and go away, but the world would know you as Edgar Allan Poe, I might volunteer for it, right? So that's not what we're talking about. People that take drugs, they want to go on that manic depressive ride, right? You are high, so you're manic. The rest of the world walks on a straight and narrow road. It may look very boring. It's safe. We get to our destination. We get to do a lot of cool stuff, but it may be boring. So you get high, you run around on the hills. And then that high, you come down and you go to a depressive mode. You're walking around in the trenches. You're walking around in the ditches. So you end up with different perspectives. Because of the fact that you see those different perspectives, you'll be able to write characters that are based on those different perspectives. For the people that are walking on a straight and narrow road, these characters end up being very interesting and compelling part of a narrative, a story, a poem, and such, right? You don't need that. No drug is ever going to give you the kind of creativity that your own juices, your own energy, the fact that you want to be a better version of your own self does not give you. And I assure you, something about the fact that you are going to be that guy that everybody else comes to and asks questions of, and $1 million decision is hinged on. Just paint that picture. Whatever gives you that picture. Repeat that in your head. And it gives you a high that it takes weeks to come off of. My own personal thing is ice cream. Not eating it. I personally do not buy it. My wife has to give it to me. Right? I restrict myself that way. But if I tell myself ice cream 5 times, I can feel my blood pressure going. I can feel my heart running. It could be 2 o'clock in the morning. I'm no longer sleepy. I'm like, all of a sudden, Professor Anbury is in front of my face. The homework he's assigned is all there. I'm not going anywhere till I'm done with it, right? It just gives you an urge that it's like you're going to battle, right? If you search within your brain, you will find that ability. It happens. It's part of your own nature. That's why you'll find mothers who are able to move a car because they think their child is stuck underneath of it. There is something that our physical body goes above and beyond. We transcend our own physical ability. That's why you get shot and you still walk for 20 paces before you fall over, because under stress, you do things that you normally are not capable of doing it. And you don't need drugs to take you there. You're able to take yourself there. You can do it. You just need to be, you just need to tune yourself up with it. Next thing is start right away to build yourself up and build your portfolio. Do not let, what I always say, do not let good stand in the way of perfection. That forces you to go into a cycle. There will be a part of your job at one day to fix my bad code. I've written a lot of bad code and you're going to fix it. People like me have written a lot of bad code and you're going to fix it. Why not start with your own? Write what you can write today. Tomorrow you learn more, come back and fix this. Create version 2 of your code. Create version 3 of your code. This is your code. You will deal with it in a very lovingly and professional way, and then you learn that system, and then the same professionalism will come through your work when you deal with somebody else's code down the line. Don't let anybody steal your brand. Don't become Mr. Microsoft. Don't become Mr. Apple. None of these people deserve your 100% attention. Be agnostic as far as your technology is concerned. Go to the root of the technology and learn that and apply that. Let the world know you by your name. Maybe if your last name is unique enough and it's not a Smith, then maybe just by your last name. Let the world know you by your name. Don't come up with some brand related. Right now you think the world doesn't know me, and if I tell the world that I'm Apple iOS developer, somehow or another, if I take Apple iOS and hook it up with my name in this creative hip hop way, and make that my brand, let people know me that way, it's cool. But who's there to say Apple iOS will even be a thing 5 years from now for you to have hanged your brand on? Be yourself. You and yourself is the clearest thing, is the most useful thing, is the most beautiful thing there could ever be for the long term. By the same token, don't get involved in these flaming wars online saying, oh, Microsoft is better than blah, blah, blah. None of that means anything when it comes to you and the work that you're doing. Remember how we were talking about breaking the norm? One part of that breaking the norm is that the kinds of things that you've seen your fathers do does not need to repeat themselves. Right? The same way that their professions may not need to. You've seen somebody make a lot of money being a database manager or database administrator. That position might not even exist. When I started, people actually made money being a business solution provider. That title does not even exist anymore. That means I know Microsoft and I can come to your business and learn what you're doing with pen and paper, and I can take it online technology and merge it with that and tell you how to use Microsoft Word or Outlook for your emails or blah, blah, blah. That doesn't even exist. There were people that would make money off of being a webmaster. Webmaster doesn't even exist. Anybody can be a webmaster. Any high school kid is a webmaster, right? The same way, the fundamental ideas around them don't exist anymore either. There was a time where your fathers, you might have seen it in their behavior or in the way they lived their life, where they've kept an ace in a hole. There was a part of their trade that they held on to, and that gave them claim to fame. You don't need to play that game. Every last bit of information that you learn, share it as quickly as you can with as many people as you can. It makes you really, 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 really super smart about that, because if you have to repeat it 50 times, that means it's like you learned the definition of object-oriented programming and you repeated it to 50 different people. You've just repeated that lesson to yourself 50 times. You learn that better. 50 other people know that you know this subject, right? In every which way, you've benefited yourself. And none of these technologies are very quickly, every year, every 6 months, are building on top of each other, and new things are coming up, right? So none of these things are permanent, hacked in stone. And the fact that you know it now, that doesn't mean the fact that you've already learned it means that it only means that you're ready to learn something else. There's so much more information for you to go and learn. You don't need to hold on to this so that gives you an edge above everybody else. Fair enough? Rock with it. Tell it to everybody else. And please tell it to me too, because I need to learn it. Thank you.
Thank you.